Right, yeah, I guess that we realized as I came here that I'm competing with Ed Sheeran for. So thank you for giving up the time. I assume you've got tickets for tomorrow's concert. No, seriously, yeah, so for me it's a bit unusual to be talking about Cape Town because normally I give talks about fancy locations in Indonesia. So to come and talk about Cape Town is quite a different thing, but I thought that Mike's idea of presenting and limiting yourself to 3 dive sites in Cape Town was a very good one. The reason why I sort of volunteered or accepted being the first is because first of all it gives me the pick of the dive sites. Nobody else is going to have to compete. That's what I've done. Well, possibly how me or computers do. But it also allows me to show off some of my Cape Town photography and want to see what I do internationally. And show off in general a little bit as well about what I've done over the last few years. Next week, actually, the 2nd of April, it will be 30 years since I had my first dive at Windmill. And obviously I've done a few dives in between. And especially in the early years, my buddy was there. For those who were on the night dive, that was the guy that dived with me that evening. Him and I, we used to do a lot of exploration around Cape Town. This was still the days before there were much dive charters out there, so everything was shore-based. And Shopia and I covered a lot of ground underwater, finding new sites, finding new things, and so on. So the 3 sites that I chose of Cape Town are, 2 of them are well-known sites. The first one I chose because it's a well-known site, but I can tell a lot about why that site is well-known. The second one is also a well-known site, but I just want to show you that if you keep your eyes open, you can see a hell of a lot. The third one is not well-known, although it is readily available, as in it's not a difficult place to get to or anything like that. And I found it was a bit disappointing that people don't really go there. Possibly good because it doesn't get harmed, but you know, it's such an easy-to-reach location, and yet people don't go there. And then for the international dive sites, the biggest problem there was that, you know, with all the dives that I've done in Cape Town, it's a bit easier to pick a site. Overseas, every holiday is a new site, a new venue. But the one that I chose was the one that definitely sort of stood out in all my overseas travels as being the most unusual and bizarre and whatever it is. So anyway, in case you don't recognize this is Sandy Cove at Outer Graal. So this is where you normally jump into the water and then go out, and over there is Keltkus, for example. So it was a nice clean day. So my first site is Pyramid and Shark Alley. I think it was an obvious selection as a good dive site in Cape Town. Pyramid Rock itself is over there, castle at the back there. And Pyramid Rock, or Shark Alley especially, is obviously well known worldwide. This is a magazine, German magazine that I subscribe to. And there you can see they're offering tours to come to Cape Town to look at cow sharks. And without a doubt, in all the dive travels that I've done, when I mention cow sharks to people and you can go and see them from shore, they look at you funny because I don't think there's any place in the world where from shore you can see such big sharks, so many of them so close. So it's got a well-deserved reputation. And the thing is that when we started diving at Pyramid Rock, we didn't know the sharks were there. Nobody told us, and we only found out by pure chance. So while I'm not saying that ourselves were the first people to see those sharks, we definitely had a very big hand in making it known in the industry and so on, because what we used to do is on dive courses, I was an instructor in those days, is that on the last qualifying dive we would take people to Pyramid Rock to show them the shark. Because one of the first questions we always had, what about sharks? You know, people were always afraid going in the water, what about sharks and so on. And we would show them that sharks themselves don't have to be dangerous and can be quite approachable and are very obviously beautiful in the water. And it didn't help that Colin and myself, Colin is also a club member here, that we had this article published in Lifestyle in November 1998. And while we didn't quite say exactly where it was, if you read the article, it doesn't take much effort to figure out where it was. And because of that, plus us telling other people, that's how it actually became popular, and more people started going there, and then obviously Pisces picked up on it, and now they're telling that nobody should be going there because only Pisces should be going there, stuff like that. So, without a doubt, sorry?
My boat.
My boat, yes, my boat. Yes, one thing that Michael said is that I had to do one shore dive and one boat dive. This counts as my boat dive. You never done my boat dive. Both are going by boat there. So, anyway, in this picture, that's Colin there in the background, and the picture itself has actually also got a bit of a story in that it served me very well on a dive trip, and that it got published in this World Atlas of Marine Fishes through Helmut Debelius and Rudy Carter, and you see the picture over there. And Colin and I were traveling in Sulawesi, and we already had been in one place and we went to another resort. Remember last year there was that one tsunami in Sulawesi, in a little town called Palu, very narrow little bay, and waves slammed into there. That was the area that we were diving in. So the diving in those days, well, when we went, it wasn't really great. I think it's worse now. But anyway, we're at that resort, and as usual in international resorts, they always want to do this check-up dive, the check-up dive, which annoys the hell out of me because we are not a European dive once a year kind of diver. We dive every weekend. We know how to dive and stuff. But the dive center owner was not interested in it, and then I discovered that there was book there. So I took the book and I opened up this page and said, "That's my buddy. I took the photo. That's a big shark. We know how to dive." And after that, things were much easier, much more relaxed. But the real story actually that I want to tell about this pyramid rock is that where does it came from? How did we actually find out that the sharks were there? So Peter Southwood does all these fantastic stuff on Wiki Travel. So there's Shark Alley itself. The pyramid rock is over there. Now we always go in where these rocks are. That I like where these rocks are. And we used to always just swim straight to Pyramid Rock, over all the areas and whatever it was, just to go to Pyramid Rock. Because Pyramid Rock is actually a really, really nice dive site. So with this, you've got very thick, dense kelp on the inside here, and a much looser kelp on the outside there. And what's so nice about it is that you get these big blocks of the local granite, and then you get very tall kelp. Really, really nice. It's very sparse kelp and so on. So that on a good day, you actually feel like you're flying through the water or flying through air rather than actually being underwater. And that visually was really, really great. There's also a number of little small caves and swim-throughs at Pyramid itself, so they're very worthwhile to seek out. And then it has fantastic fish life as well. Stuff that you can see here, you cannot see that often on other places. So for example, the Cape Knife Jewel grows quite large. They eat they're called also sort of a parrotfish because they have a beak that is similar to a parrotfish, and they use it to scrape things. I'll be showing you a bit later the juvenile of this as well. So it was another interesting thing that I noticed. Then you get this one here, the bank steergrass. It's about the only shore site that I know of in that area of False Bay where you can see them. And this one here, the steergrass, Petrus rupestris. And these ones can go very big as well. We never see really massive ones. This one was about that sort of size. It's a decent sized fish, but just still has the spot that the juvenile has. I don't know if you've ever seen a juvenile of this, but because it's got yellow all the way over the back there, and just that spot. The first time I saw one of those, I couldn't identify it because it just looked so different. And only one obscure little book had a picture of a juvenile in it. So anyway, these are the sort of things that the reason why we went to this dive site, because the fish life was good, it was very scenic, it was very different, really, really enjoyable. There are other things that you can find there as well. These nudibranchs, for example, lots of people have seen them because I've had many requests to try and identify it. I've not seen it anywhere else, and I actually don't know what it is. So we think it's a variable dorit, Aphelodoris brunea, but we're not quite certain what kind of stuff. But interesting that we only find it there, not at Castle Rocks, nowhere else. Not that I've ever seen at least. Of the other interesting things that we've seen as well now and then is guitarfish as well. Don't see those very often at all. But that one we saw there, and one time we saw a few of those. That's my wife Helen in the picture here. That's a birdfish, birdbeak birdfish, and it's a bit like a blossom. You know, it inflates itself and then it's got spines all over itself. And so you get to find nice stuff. But then one fine day we were coming back from Pyramid, probably on the surface, and we started seeing these spotted gully sharks. Now, spotted gully sharks are decent sized sharks, and this is one that you can see a bit better. But I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. They tend to be quite skittish. And what we discovered was that in order to see these sharks, the best way to do it was to swim on the surface until you saw one, and then descend sort of behind it on the side so that it wouldn't see you. And then you could maybe swim with it, or you would hold your breath and stand behind some kelp and so on, try and be inconspicuous. Because the moment I saw you, there you go. Stuff, you know? And this was exciting. I mean, hey, you know, got some decent sized sharks close to shore, very dense kelp. And they're actually very nice sharks as well. The Latin name of the shark is also quite interesting. It's called Dreychus megalopterus. Dreychus refers to the tricuspid teeth, but megalopterus means big winged, and it does have rather large fins compared to a lot of other sharks. So very cute, very nice, and we started taking people to see this. And sometimes they can occur in a rather surprising number. There's a little video clip next, and I'm not a videographer, I just have a GoPro and all this. So my videos are not the greatest, but I think it just illustrates how dense they can be. So I'm snorkeling at the moment, because that's, like I said, it's the easiest way to see them. It's very shallow waters, maybe 3 meters deep. And I just couldn't believe it to see that many.
You can snorkel at Buffer's Bay. Or the slipway, you often see juveniles, a lot of 5 or 6 juveniles in there as well.
Yeah, Buffer's Bay seems to be the only area that is similar to Permanent Rock in terms of what's there. And it's just more normal.
How many years ago was that?
It's not that long ago, about 5 years or so. This was unusual, I must admit. I mean, we usually saw quite a few of them, but not such a dense congregation as this.
What's so you filming with?
Just a little GoPro.
GoPro.
Yeah, one of the original HD one. Crappy little thing. Like I said, what we used to do in those days is when we took people there, is that we would snorkel on the surface and we'd disperse quite a bit until somebody saw a shark and called the other one people over, and then we would calmly descend and go down. So Jean-Pierre and I were actually taking Bits on the Winter Club for a dive there. And one of the Bits guys shouted and saw something, and we went and had a look, and we descended next to it, and like I said, we were sort of like behind the shark. I look at the shark and we're like, something not right with this one. You know, it's sort of missing this first dorsal fin. And I look a bit more carefully and I don't see any scar tissue, so I go like, well, it seems like it had a first dorsal fin. And then I'm going forward, because this thing wasn't swimming away, it was just simply cruising along. And I realized that this is not spot cat. It doesn't have a little point to it. It's not. That's not. The Jean-Pierre was about to grab its tail, and I was like, don't do that. Okay? And I said to him, this is something different kind of stuff. You know? Went home, looked at my books, and then read it up. It was Orionicus sepidianus, spotted gummy shark, these ones. And in the book it said that, you know, the big ones compete with young rays, whites, percent, fruit source, carrion, seals and stuff like that, and I realized that's not quite the same thing. So anyway, so of course now we started saying, well, we saw it once, we're going to go and see it again. And that's when we actually started going there more frequently, just to go and have a look at them, and discovered that Shark Alley, which by the way is, what's it, claim the rights to have named that one, that site, that it really is just that one sandy patch where the sharks tend to congregate and go back and forth and then disappear somewhere and then come back again. As to why the sharks are there, the only thing that I can think of is because of the slipway, old slipway at Willis Point, possibly they got used to being fed there, we're not sure. The fact that you see them at Buffer's Bay, similar sort of setup, might just be the reason why it is. But of course, I mean, everybody who's seen those knows how fantastic they are, and that blue beside the shark kind of stuff. And it's really it's an absolute magic to see it. And so the next two videos were taken with my very first digital camera when it wasn't megapixels but kilopixels, so the quality isn't the greatest, but just gives you, has everybody here seen car shots? Okay, so this should look familiar, but this is what we sort of experiences that we've had over the years. What always amazes me is when you dive with them, they're just following one shark and the other shark just comes in sideways or coming from another direction and things like that. What we have discovered over the years is that when we started doing this, is that we had to look for the sharks, but as more and more people started going, the sharks would actually come and pitch up and seek you out. And we've had a few scary encounters, especially Helen once went on a late afternoon dive, and the sharks started trying to separate her and buddy, and they were clearly in feeding mode and stuff. And that's when you feel very spooked and you actually go and exit the water. This is now going to go on to another second clip. And here I find it amazing how many sharks you see. So there's one in the back, there's these two here. And I always like as well, and you'll see it with this one, is how I really look at you. You know, it's not just this big black eye. It's really looking at you. No, I'm bigger than this one, so it's fine. The next one, that's a big mama there.
Mm.
Really, I'm interested just to your last comment about you said that Helen and the buddy were down and they tried to separate them. How did that work? What were they? How did they?
We went at dusk and it was sort of like late afternoon. It's actually the JP.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it, but we were seeing them and they kept coming and eventually I could see the JP wasn't happy, so no one was get out. And they were actually trying to come between us. We were swimming out together.
Okay.
And they're actually trying to, it wasn't actually very nice, because then I saw him not happy, but then Jack was really a calm person, diving, and they were actually trying to separate. They kept coming and pushing between us.
From behind you?
Yeah, because we then turned around and it was not very nice, because when he started bolting, then I thought, okay, there's definitely something not right here. And also the other thing, they were showing their teeth. It was like a terrier, when they lifted their lip, like a dog lifts his lip.
Yeah.
I thought, God, I've never seen his teeth before, but you could see the teeth sticking out. So it was just like, it was just
I've been there once where we weren't welcome. It also
No.
felt like
No,
I mean, one normally hears about.
we did.
One normally hears about cow sharks. I mean, yes, we know they attack seals and the rest of it. You normally hear about them as being fairly docile animals.
But I've also never seen his teeth. I mean, all the diving I was Guido there, that was the only time I ever saw it. Like I say, fox terrier lifting his lip to squeeze them all. They had quite long teeth.
So you know, if you look at all the common names for it, broad nose, spotted, seven-gill, cow shark, all those names make sense except cow. Where does the cow come from? You know? So the only thing we can say is, oh well, because it's not very bovine behavior, you know, they're really well. The thing is that you must just think one thing is, why is this thing so calm? Because it's very high in the food chain. It doesn't have to be afraid of you. You know, just think about that the next time they swim at you and then you decide it's not afraid of you. Everything else, you know, the gullies, they got tiny little teeth, they're afraid of you, not these ones. Anyway,
They estimate it because they look like they don't have any teeth.
yeah, exactly. But like, people look at, that's why I like having ragged-tooth sharks in aquariums. Ragged-tooth sharks are not aggressive, but the things have got all these bristly teeth everywhere, so they look very aggressive, you know. So anyway, the predictability of these sharks, in terms of being able to see them at specific areas at Shark Alley, also made me want to do one thing that I knew was going to be a challenge. Not the very first picture that I had, it's called a small world picture. And the way you do it is that you take basically photos all the way around, and then you take a photo down, and then you stitch it all together, and then you get this idea of a small planet, a small world kind of stuff. And I said, I want to do this underwater, and I want to get cow sharks in them. And so I went and found a nice open clearing in Shark Alley and waited and managed to get the picture. Now, obviously this wasn't taken in one shot. Like I said, you have to take pictures all the way around. And what I just did is I put, I'll show you just now how I do it. I took those pictures and I waited for the sharks to come around and just took pictures of the sharks and then blended those pictures in. The next one is the second attempt on it. There's 3 sharks in this picture here. There's 1, 2, and there's somewhere else there's another one. Right here. There's 1 there and then 2 there. The next picture was taken at exactly the same spot, but months apart, and it's also quite interesting to see how the bottom can change. You see, all the gravel has been covered by sand now. And in this case, one of the sharks is actually repeated, because you wouldn't be able to notice that kind of stuff. This is quite challenging to do because unlike on land, kelp moves all the time, so when you start stitching the photos together, you have to decide which bit of kelp to include, which to exclude. And it's not an easy thing. And how do I do this? Well, this is a photo that Helen took, and I use a tripod. I went in, built myself a little tripod, using normal garden irrigation systems. So this part unscrews, and then this whole thing collapses like a normal tripod, and then you just clip it onto the top, and you do this. And it's still not an easy thing to do, but it was good fun. So yeah, so that's sort of the story behind Shark Alley. Like I said, I don't profess to be the first one to have seen those sharks there, but I do believe that our spreading the word to everybody into dive schools and so on has made it what it is nowadays. And I wish I could get some royalty out of Pisces for every time. But that's not going to happen. All right, so then the next site. And this is again Helen on the very, very best day that visibility-wise that I've ever had at A-frame. And I like A-frame because A-frame has got good parking, it's got easy access, it's easy entries and exits. It's just a really nice place, and it tends to be calmer than any other spots. It's more interesting than Windmill. It's not as surgy as Spaniard or Castle or something like that. So it's a really great site. And it's obviously used a lot by dive schools. You can see that's you, Wayne, there. Sorry, you weren't listening when I said that everybody smiled. And the problem with a lot about A-frame is that people tend to underestimate it. Sort of like, oh, well, it's a slightly more glamorous Long Beach kind of thing. And to me, that is sad because if the brief is, if you could choose one dive site and one of the three dive sites, I actually go here a hell of a lot because of the fact that I really like it. The real locals, of course, are the bussies that you can see on the rocks there. And there's even a few little rock pools where you can see things like these blunt nose clipfish in there. Actually, when you go in, that little boulder that sticks out, is that little rock pool just there? That's where this was photographed. So even the rock pools can't be underestimated. And here's the dive site itself. So again, Peter Southwood's fantastic image. You jump in over here, and most people either go to where the actual cave is or around here. But what people don't tend to underestimate is this area over here. Those are all quite sheer-sided big boulders, quite flat-top big boulders, and that's actually really, really nice. Even the sand is fantastic. Specifically, either there or here, there's some really, really nice areas where on the sand you can see interesting stuff. So we've seen lots of interesting things there, even exotic things like this. This is a ghost pipefish, robust ghost pipefish. It shouldn't be in Cape Town, but it's nice to see there. You don't see as many exotic things as you can see at Long Beach, things that drift in, but it wasn't bad. And you can even sometimes see spotted gully, like here. Basically, the entrance to that cabin is on the left-hand side. So this is the rock on the other side. You must listen to me breathing. Like as soon as the sharks come close, I stop breathing so that I don't get spooked. And there's the second one. There were actually three or so in the area.
I'm not supposed to hold the breath then.
And I breathe out because now sharks behind the rock. And thankfully they're fairly predictable and that they do tend to swim around rocks. So there's the first one that's going away, but I knew the second one was still there. And there it comes. And I'm holding my breath again. The photo didn't come out well. And another one. So, even A-frame can deliver the big stuff. Even better than this is that now and then I've seen another type of shark here called a hound shark, Lucellus. And they are also same sort of size as these ones, but much more slender, and they tend to live on sandy areas, but they are, if these things are skittish, these things are way more skittish than that. The moment they get any whiff of you, they disappear. But, as with these things, as they, with the spotted gullies, is they do tend to hang around. They sort of dash away, but they sort of come back, and there's normally a group of them. So, last year I saw one of them, I saw them scatter, and I decided, no, I've got to be something. And I started searching, and then I had the luck to see this. You can see it's a much more slender shark, smaller fins, very pointy snout. So that was quite magical. This is not something you see often with these types of shops. In terms of seeing new stuff there, a lot. This one stands out particularly. That's called the Clown Anemone, and Helen took a photo of it and she thought it was a nudibranch, and then she said that she saw this colourful nudibranch. It was quite small, and I looked at the picture and I said, that's not a nudibranch, that's you know, an anemone, but nothing that I'd ever seen before. So then Helen got sick, and I decided to still go for a dive, and I asked her where did you want to see it and how big was it. Yeah, about 5 rand coin and stuff. And I started searching high and low, and I just couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. I went back several times. Eventually I found it. It turned out to be only 10 cent coin and stuff. And so
I was sick.
yeah, Helen was sick, so she was hallucinating and sort of drugs or something like that. Anyway, the thing is, this turns out to be a new species, which unfortunately has still not been described, and the genus Halianthella. And what is also quite interesting about it is that the tentacles are always in this arrangement, with the middle one of these ones always tipped up and these ones always in the middle. So we call it clown anemone because this sort of reminded me of the court jester's hat, you know, on the Joker on the cards as well. That sort of hat. But you do get it in other colours as well. It was just that this one stood out most, and that's how I spotted it. The other colours are sort of a very light, sort of reddish colour, or even quite see-through, but genuinely a little bit of that chevron pattern on it. And they're really tiny. If you want to find them, kelp holdfasts between the actual kelp the actual kelp bits, in between you can find them. But you have to look hard, and I've been struggling lately to try and find any of them. The other thing that I can find here at Ephraim more easy than any other spot is this here, my pride and joy. This is the stargazer shrimp. This is a species that I discovered and I went and couldn't identify, so I took it to Charlie Griffiths of UCT, who came back to me saying this is a new species, and because I've been helping Charlie with a lot of things, he actually had it named after me. But this one...
First name or surname?
Surname, unfortunately. So the poor scientists out there. so the thing is, the funniest thing is that Mycodopsis Zsilavecz is that if you have it in normal 10-point font, that the Zsilavecz is bigger than the shrimp is. What was actually really interesting about this, I mean, the reason I call it stargazer is because of the eyes. So the eyes are characteristics, and often these blue sort of half eyes. But the eyes are really a fascinating thing. So obviously the shrimp isn't looking up, you know, it's not gazing at the stars, because it's a compound eye, so it's looking everywhere. But why would it have those rather bizarre looking rings on the eyes? And I mean, it's consistent, they all have that kind of stuff. So we're not 100% sure. And the interesting thing as well is that these all turned out to be the males. We haven't found the females yet. We think that the females swim away from the reef, not on the reef, but we haven't found them yet. And unlike other mysis, they don't come in colonies, they don't come in groups, they are very much singly here and there and stuff. If you want to find them on rocky walls,
real size.
fine.
Fine.
Yeah.
10 cent, you mean?
Yes. 10 cent, yes.
10 cent on the side.
On the side, yes. Yeah, something like that, yeah, exactly. What was actually quite fascinating about this is that when Charlie Griffiths and the guy that helped him describe it published the paper, UCT interviewed me for their, together with Charlie, interviewed me for their newsletter kind of stuff. And the name Stargazer must have drawn the attention of the international press because it was fascinating from day to day to see, basically, I wouldn't call it viral, but to see how it spread, you know, throughout the world. To the extent that one of the cable, whatever this, DSTV Chinese news channels went and asked for an interview. So, bizarre thing. It just caught the attention of people, and if you search for it, you will see it everywhere and stuff. So these are some of the new things. The fish life at Ephraim is actually remarkably good as well. It doesn't have the really big fish kind of stuff, but it's quite vibrant. I mean, here we've got lots of Hottentot and a Roman in between, but you find other species as well. So we've got the Dassie, the Blacktail, the Franz Madame, and the John Brown, and here we can see the Galjoen. In the one corner of the big rock, there's a few Galjoen that hang out there, but they have been incredibly elusive to me to try and photograph them. Normally when the visibility is not that great, they come closer, and the visibility is good, they stay away. I just haven't been able to photograph them, which is really, really annoying. Galjoen are skittish, very fast swimming, don't sit, always really fast. Some other fish, juvenile Roman at the top left. On the far right we have a judgeaw, and that's the juvenile of the judgeaw, which now and then you can find. They tend to be quite low on the ground, in little cracks and so on. And you can see they're quite different in terms of the coloration. And this poor little bugger, he was really small and already it's a parasite. I felt so sorry for him. Such a cute one. And butterfly fish as well. One of the best places to see butterfly fish in Cape Town. So this butterfly fish, in case you don't know, is the only naturally occurring butterfly fish in the cold waters like Cape Town. None of the others occur naturally. Clipfish as well, if you start looking for smaller stuff. So on the left hand side we've got, my left. Your left. This is the peacock clipfish, and they come in a variety of colors. So they tend to resemble whatever they sit on. So you get green ones that sit on green calopa, and you get these red ones, brown ones, red ones on the red sort of leafy seaweed, and these ones that sit in an upright rack. And on the other side, that's a bull clipfish, and on the top, that one there, that's the juvenile one. It's very distinct, very different to the adult. And adults can get quite big, one of the bigger species as well. And then the other two pride and joys of mine is the blue spotted clipfish, which I discovered and described myself. And this one is a mosaic clipfish, and if it looks a bit like a normal super clipfish because it's closely related. I always had this inkling that I thought that it was something different because it was consistently had a different pattern to everything else. And they like sitting on rubble, sandy areas. You find a lot of them at Windmill as well. Anyway, and then I collaborated with a paper where we used DNA analysis, and indeed it turns out to be a new species, a distinct species. So, very nice. And then, of course, these things, nudibranchs. I think that A-frame must be one of the better spots to find lots of nudibranchs. That other picture, by the way, is this one. It's these things there. And I'm not going to. I decided to just choose a handful of them to show you, but if you keep your eye open, you can really see a lot of different species. This one over here was one of the better finds. That's a species called Corambe. It hasn't actually been officially described yet. And it lives on kelp, where it always lives on that bryozoa. Obviously, it's tries to resemble it. And it's one of these species that has been eluding me for years. You know, I've got the book, I know it exists, I know where it's meant to live. And while I find lots of kelp with that stuff on it, I just couldn't find it. And then one day, one winter season, they were all over the place. And since then, it disappeared again. It makes you wonder, where do these things go when they're over the next years? And different species here as well. These are obviously a mating of the fiery nudibranchs and what I've forgotten, coral nudibranchs. These also have increased over the years, in my opinion, in terms of their appearance. This is also a new species that we're not quite sure of. And then these ones, I'm going to mention them later on. That's Cretonia milsodneri, the big fan coral nudibranch. And you can see here that it comes in a yellow variety and a white variety. The coral comes in yellow and white as well. Normally you find the white ones in white coral and the yellow ones in yellow coral. So this one decided not to do that. And that's what it looks like when it's untangled like that. And I'll show you a picture later on, is that sometimes these things can be very, very common as well. Just keep your eyes open. Because I know A-frame very well, it also helps that from a photography point of view, because it's a common site. I start playing around with photography as well in terms of super macro, going beyond the one-to-one that you can get. And then you can start taking pictures like this. And then you can go even more berserk and do this. So I mean, you've all seen what the size of this thing is like. And this is uncropped. Okay, this is how I took it. So this is a magnification of what, 1 million times or something like that? I don't know. The way I do this, by the way, is I take a lens and I reverse it. So I use a wide-angle lens, and the wider the lens is, the more, when you reverse it, the more magnification you get. But your depth of field is nothing. I mean, that's less than a millimeter. The animal's about 2 millimeters long or so, 2, 3 maybe. So you can see the depth of field is nothing. And here we've got one of the normal sand shrimps that you can find now and then. Not that common, but still nice. And then, not so long ago, I finally managed to confirm a hunch that I had. So I remember the judgejaw, the Cape knife jaw that we saw, the Cape knife jaw that we saw. That's its juvenile. And I had seen it now and then. I remember one dive that we did with the club, and we were at the Klein Stewart, and right in the middle where the boiler is, I saw this fish, and I saw other fish moving about, and I thought I saw, wait a second, it seems to be cleaning the other fish. What could that be? And then not too long ago, I went and saw that actually really did that. It sets up a cleaning station, which does move around, so it's not as predictable. And fish are milling about. That's a John Brown. You can see the finger fin is waiting behind there. There's another finger fin, the fin of the finger fin there. And the fish really coming in, opening up the gills, and this fish goes and cleans it. Which finally explains also why the bright color is there. You know, normally fish have bright colors because they're trying to warn somebody or they want to advertise. And in this case, it's advertising that I am a cleaning station, come to me. As the fish grows older, this one is quite a big one already, so you can see that it's becoming a bit darker. The yellow disappears, and then they start taking up the adult life, and they start scraping things off leaves and so on. But it was just so nice that I finally managed to see that this was actually what they were doing. Unfortunately, like I said, the cleaning stations move around. The fish stay around, but you know, they move away, and they don't always seem to do this.
And you've got to have the right lens on your camera.
This was actually a bloody nuisance because I had macro lens on, and with the macro lens you have to go far away. That's why I've got so much backscatter in there as well. Anyway, just a little bit more arty photo of mullet, and you go to the next site. And that's the mushroom pinnacle at our craft. And it's in clear sight. I mean, you see it.
Yeah.
No, obviously not. It's somewhere there. Okay? So, this one is again one of these dive sites that it's a single rock kind of stuff that we found just by pure chance because Jean-Pierre and I, one fine day, decided to go from Keltkis underwater to Justin's. And we bumped into this big rock and we went like, whoa, this thing is nice. You know, it's really, really cool. I'm swimming and I go through the 7 caverns and I'm like, oh, this is nice. I'm trying to remember this. And the next moment I'm in front of this wall and there's this little triangle opening on the one side and I'm like, surely not. I'm at Justin's. So I managed to completely bypass the whole lot.
What's the last on the water? The last on the water. Can we record this?
The thing is that I can find it on the surface without a problem, but I went down over here because I tend to normally be able to find my way around there, but if I can't see anything, I can't that's all these things. The annoying thing about last week Friday is that it was spring low. And while I normally come out over here because of the kelp and my camera, no ways I can do that, so I have to swim all the way back here. But yeah.
I found some nice chambers there with which are quite deep and you can swim all the way through them. With quite big fish still wrestling as well.
Mm.
And I pointed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You don't have to, there's more chambers on this side.
Yeah. But the strangest thing is right here, just this little part.
Oh, yes, those ones.
Unbelievable.
No. There's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 cracks. One is very tight, but the other 2 are very good, especially the one because you can go through and then it opens up a bit. No, those are fantastic.
Those are fantastic.
There's a big fish. High tide, really, really great. And the things are so nicely hidden because you really come around that first rock and there's this kelp that overhangs it, so it hides that one entrance. And then you go through, and then you come into the little channel, and there's 3 caves off there, off there. Really, really nice. Anyway, this is Peter Southwood's diagram, and I called this thing mushroom pinnacle, and look at what he says, requiring a bit of imagination. Peter's really done it well. So the thing is that the cave has got, the rock has got 2 caverns or 2 overhangs, and the one is really on top of each other. So the floor of the one is basically the other side of the ceiling of the other one. And the 2 caverns, because of that, or the overhangs, because of their different depths, are quite different in terms of what's in there. And the bottom one tends to be the prettier one, but the thing is, it's nice to see the difference of maybe 2-3 meters of water as to what that can have an impact on the marine life. And what I like about it is because it's quite a compact area. I mean, you can easily dive half a dozen times around it within half an hour or something like that. But because of its sheer sides, it's really, really, really pretty. And so this is what it looks like from actually above it. So the rock itself never breaks the surface, and even in strong winter sea conditions, you can barely see it break, kind of stuff. And the one thing I said about those overhangs is that they are really bowls and air collects in them. And after having gone there a few times, I noticed that the air level was, rising, I guess. And I didn't like that, so the one day I decided that I need to do something about that because the poor anemones that were stuck to the ceiling were all elongated so they could still have the tentacles in the water. And I went for a club dive again with Falls Valley Water Club, and I took along a garden hose. And of course, people look at you going like, garden hose? What are you going to do with that? And I said, just watch this. So you know that if you want to decant water from a bucket to another bucket with a hose, is you put the hose on the one side, suck it in the water, and gravity takes it down. The same will happen the other way around. Just think about it, is that from 10 meters away, 1 bar pressure differential. So it worked really well. So I got somebody to hold the hose at the top. I went down, blew into the hose, put it in, and it was unbelievable how that air level just started visibly rising. Then I swapped places, and I tell you one thing, the amount of air spewing out at that thing was just unreal. Anyway, since then I discovered after a winter, the first time I went there, that there wasn't any air in there, and there was no way that anybody had dived in there. It must just be the super aerated water when there's a big swell that comes in and pushes the air in, and then the next swell, if there's not enough air, can actually push it out again. So it's a natural occurrence. Also tried a small world in the area. The rock itself is more or less over there, but this gives you sort of an idea of the topography down there. It's quite sparse kelp, big granite areas and so on. But the rock itself is really, really pretty. There's always a big school of Hottentot, especially on the one corner. And then you can see the overhang of actually the lower of the two. And then there's sheer sides everywhere. And it's really, really colorful. Again, the same school of Hottentot, but now on the one corner of it. And then there's this nice swim through as well, and you can see the sort of marine life that you find here. And that's what I love about this spot, is that for a small area, it's actually of the whole of the Ouderbal site, I find this is the prettiest. It delivers the most color, the most variety. Like I say, it just speaks for itself. This is what the inside of the lower of the two overhangs looks like, with the strawberry anemones and soft coals and all of these things. Really, really pretty. You find lots of little sponge crabs as well, some with rather nice looking sponge on them. And then the nudibranchs. I'm not showing you too many. This one, the reason why I'm showing this one and the next one is because they're actually a species you don't find that often in the Atlantic. The white-lined one and then the giraffe spot. First places where I've seen them were here. And then in this image, what I want to see is, remember the Teutonia, the Wickfan corals, you can see that every little blob here is one of them. So normally when you see them, there are quite a few of them on there, but I've never seen as many in such a small space as here. Alright, so this is the one spot, and like I said, it's readily accessible. You just need to have a rough idea as to where to go. And once you know where it is, it's easy enough to find. I mean, most of the time it's easy on a calm day, you swim on the surface, and you can sort of line it up with Healthkiss and Justin's Caves, and you'll be able to see it, and then go down and just drop off the side and have a really, really lovely dive. Underwater it's a bit trickier, but it does stand out. I mean, it's quite flat all around, so it's not bad. So now we come to my international dive site, and in this book, The Malay Archipelago by Alfred Russel Wallace, and does everybody know who Russel Wallace was? He's a guy who actually was sort of the co-discoverer of the theory of evolution together with Charles Darwin. He's the one that forced Charles Darwin to publish his book. And he wrote this paper in, I think, 19 pages. He comes up with the same concept that Charles has the book Dave Fat on, kind of stuff, you know, but he just put down his thoughts and he wrote it, whereas Charles Darwin was a bit more conservative and he took a long time to try and prove it. But anyway, he spent a lot of time in the Malay Archipelago, actually Indonesia mostly, and he wrote in there this little passage. Leaving the village the next morning with a light wind, it took us all day to reach the entrance to the channel, which resembled a small river and was concealed by a projecting point, so that it was no wonder that we did not discover it amid the dense forest vegetation which everywhere covers these islands to the water's edge. A little way inside it becomes bounded by precipitous rocks, after winding a mouth for which 2 miles we emerged into what seemed like a lake, but which was in fact a deep gulf having a narrow entrance to the south coast. What he was writing about was the passage, Raja Ampat in Indonesia. And the passage was sort of first made public by David Duboulet, the underwater photographer that often puts his stuff in National Geographic. And the first time I saw pictures of it, I said, I have to go there. And I think it was a year or so later, we actually managed to go there. And it really is the way Alfred Russel described it. It's just this narrow river between two fairly large, narrow channel between two fairly large islands, and with these overhangs and the cliffs, the trees coming right to the water's edge, and then you come out into this lake. So it is mind-blowingly different. So as a dive site, it's really very unusual. Because of the fact that it's so dark, it means that the soft coral can grow in much shallower water than it normally does. Plus, there's a raging current through it. I mean, there was all of these things where the dive master says, guys, you've got to really listen to me, okay? I'm not kidding you. you need to hug the edge, because the moment you get anywhere beyond the edge, that's it, poof, down you go. And you will not recover it. They said they've tried it, and will not be able to swim back to the sides. That's how it is. So it was really a thing of going the single file, and especially if there was a bit of a rock that jutted out, so like you had to sort of peer around it to see, is the coast clear? Yes, okay, coast quickly go around it. But then you can see these sort of stuff. That's Helen again, where you have this soft coral with the fish in it, and above it, that's trees. That's how shallow you are. Within 3-4 meters of coast. It is just so mind-blowingly different. Of all the dive sites that I've done, that this stands out as being the most unusual place that you can visit. And there you can see very clearly the tree lines. I mean, this part, half of this rock is above land already, is above the water. And the rest is underwater. So it is really, really, really different. And Raja Ampat is great anyway. There's no doubt about it. That is probably the market in the world's best diving location in terms of biodiversity and excitement. It's relatively sparsely populated, so that adds to the adventure. But this site just blew my mind. We did 2 trips to it, and both trips were just so, or 2 day trips, and they were just so fantastic. And everywhere you see the sun. There's also a very nice cabin on the one side, on the one, either depending on the tide, so you start where you end up with a whole window, with nice fish life in there. And for those who don't like the wide angle stuff, the one dive I actually put, because you did 2 dives in the channel, I put on my macro lens and took some other pictures. These, by the way, are the tropical sea squids, or the red bait equivalent thereof. The tropics, everything has to be pretty than what we have kind of stuff. And here's just a few more other small things. So this is really, if I have to only dive one spot anywhere in the world, I would love to explore this more and more. Those big things also go through the channel and so on. Yeah, and then with one of the fantastic Raja Ampat sunsets, that's the end of it. Thank you very much.